Merck announcing yesterday that it will cut list prices of several drugs and also pledges to limit future net price increases. This on the heels of Pfizer and Novartis bowing to public pressure, freezing drug price increases as well. Will more drug companies follow suit? Let's bring in Michael Yee, Managing Director and Equity Analyst at Jefferies. Michael, always great to see you. We had European pharmaceutical companies today also say they're going to do basically the same thing. Roche, Bayer, and Merck of Germany all saying that they are going to freeze U.S. prices. When you're factoring in the scenario for the sector, are you factoring in that there won't actually be legislation, but that there will be this just voluntary rollback and that will suffice?
Well, I think the important takeaway that investors should understand about the recent developments was that while there were either no price increases or, in some cases with Merck, price decreases, very interestingly, the drugs that they reduced prices on were either very small drugs or very insignificant drugs. So that was one thing. To answer your question, we are not taking into account major legislation that we think will get enacted that will significantly impact future drug prices, and certainly not assuming big drug prices in our models. And I think that's a good thing. I think there were some important winners, just to be very clear about what just happened, and that Trump certainly is appearing to look good, at least on the surface of this, and drug companies certainly looking good, at least on the surface, realizing you and I know the details of it.
It really is a win-win for everybody. And when you take a look at what Merck is doing in terms of their biggest rollback of 60% was on a Hep C drug. And in their last earnings report, they actually had a decline in sales. It's such a small part of the business, and it was part of the business that was already in decline. So it seems like the drug companies can actually pick and choose so as to emerge with the least impact on their bottom lines. But if you sort of model this out, Michael, are there other companies that you might be concerned about that really rely much more on price increases in order to keep up with estimates?
Yeah, I think that in terms of big biotech or big pharma where there might be risk, I would just argue that we certainly are not assuming, and I agree with consensus, that they're not assuming big price increases on these drugs. Whether or not there's actually price decreases, I think, like you said, they're probably going to be able to pick and choose a little bit of that, and that overall, holistically, that their total pharmaceutical portfolio is not going to have significant price increases. So I think that the good news here is that both the administration is trying to look good, drug companies are trying to look good, and it might be in some form a compromise to say, hey, look, these things are happening, we're working with you. Will the government work on their side to ease up a little bit? And I think ultimately that's why I think that major legislation is not going to happen. People will feel better about that. Midterm elections will pass, and we'll go into 19 feeling a lot better about these things.
But bottom line, their strategy is just wait it out? I mean, what, you wait until President Trump isn't president anymore, and then they can go back to raising prices in a way that they think is correct for their business model?
I think that I would reiterate many of these drug companies, that would include Celgene, Biogen, Vertex, et cetera, they are more cognizant. They have reiterated they're more aware, certainly do not want to be publicly shamed, on Twitter. And I think people are certainly aware of that. I think that given that nature, modest price increases are certainly things, mid-single digit, et cetera. While I would argue that those could continue, we all also know that it's about gross to net rebating, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the good news is people are more aware of these things. Shouldn't be a major impact going forward.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.